you bashed your age. I did not bash your age, and I promise this is not a bash on your age. But I literally have people reaching out every week at 23, 24, saying, I'm too
Mm-hmm.
old to change industries. And there are countless stats that we've all seen them of founders who didn't start the thing or register the business until they were 50 or something like that, older than both of us, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
what do you have to say to that person who thinks they're either behind or they're too late?
Rubbish.
It's true.
In this instance, and I use this phrase carefully because I don't like to get into the I can fix everything if I just think about it. If it's all, I'm going to pull myself up by my bootstraps. Yeah, we are privileged to have the ability to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, right? And we talk often about the privilege that we have as people who have family members and friends who I used to play this game. We played it many times. The worst case scenario. What's the worst thing that could happen to us in this business? What's the worst thing that could happen to us in this moment right now? Well, I'd I'd be embarrassed if the business failed. Okay, I think I can get over that. I'd have to declare bankruptcy. Okay, that sucks. But okay, there are mechanisms that help me get through that process.
And you wouldn't be the first person in the world to declare bankruptcy either.
Wow, yeah, exactly. Much more irresponsible people than me have had to do that. Um, I'd have to go back to Australia and tail between my legs and sleep on my parents' couch or in their spare bedroom, for a few weeks while I got myself back on my feet. Wow, then I'm pretty lucky. If that's my worst case scenario, I'm pretty lucky. So how that all ties into this is what are the safety nets that you have? What's the privilege that you hold, the luck that you have to be lucky to have family members who would, they'd put up with you for a couple of weeks on their couch while you were figuring out the transition. Okay, well, then you've got 2 more weeks than most other people. And gosh, let's talk timelines then. So I graduated college at the ripe old age of 20 after 4 years of uni. Yes, I was young when I started. It's a whole thing. There's a backstory. Don't worry. It's not really that interesting. And I'm not smart, so don't worry. Scraped through on the coattails of friends in uni who were much smarter than I was. I was just really good at writing essays. Came out, worked in insurance, workers' compensation for about a year, then switched to doing pediatric healthcare. So as a therapist. Then about 4 or 5 years later, I pivoted into marketing and communications. Then I pivoted into philanthropic consulting. Then I pivoted to being an entrepreneur and started 5 businesses in 4 years. And here we are. So I don't do what I train to be. I use it every day. Some of those frameworks, like I said, human-centered design, I learned all of that at university. But I'm not doing the thing that I trained to be. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a therapist now. We use therapeutic practices in our facilitation with our online events. Like, it's amazing how you can come so full circle with everything's a learning opportunity. That's how I would define it. And at 23 to 25, man, I wish someone had sat me down and said, this is actually the beginning of all the opportunities you're about to have. Find people who are going to push you, find people who are going to champion you. Another adage that I don't agree with is, only find people who are going to lift you up. Only hang out with people who are going to lift you up. Rubbish. You do need champions. You need cheerleaders. Sometimes it's good to be around people that you don't really jive with because you learn from them. Observe them. How do they behave? What is it that you respect about them? What would you not want to do? Everything's a learning opportunity. And I acknowledge I'm a doer. So when I see a problem, I just want to roll up my sleeves and solve it. My husband tells me all the time that, at the start of the pandemic, and even when we had to close down the tech company and I pivoted to, wanting to start the event company, was back in Australia, no idea how I was going to make my way in the world, and was like, I know I'm, heading back to Seattle soon. What the heck am I going to do? In a week, my friend Nat, actually, Nathaniel Fu, there you go, shout out Nat. He and I started a poke truck because we're like, you know what? I know how to make great poke. We're going to start a food truck. And in a week, we started one. Get out there and do something. Do something in your spare time that gets you to where you want to go. Maybe close Instagram or your phone a little more often. And I acknowledge that we need to decompress, that we have to deal with our stress. But even if it's 10% of your time, or even if it's an hour a week, how are you moving yourself forward to where you want to be? And be around people who are doing the same thing. And then you realize it's not as impossible as you think. So yeah, and for those 23 to 25-year-olds out there thinking it's too late to change, friend, 20 years down the track, almost, I can tell you, change things about 6 or 7 times, and it is well worth it. I would not change it for the world.
Stereotypical therapist thing, I learned a new question from you that I'm going to ask in some of my coaching calls, because when I get that question or this dilemma that people are struggling with, I'd be curious what the answer that people would say to, who are you comparing yourself to? Because I think that
Yep.
It's not that you feel like you're too old to change industries. For a lot of people, it's, I see where I am and I'm looking at where these other people are, and I feel like there's a disconnect. So that's a really interesting point that I don't think gets talked about enough.
And, I think if I can make a point of saying, it's one of the reasons why we try to hire laterally. We try to apply a lot of lateral thinking to our hiring, because some of our best team members have not ever had professional event experience. And so find those companies that are willing to work with people who don't have the traditional experience of that industry, because you're probably going to get an opportunity that you wouldn't have got if you went to a more traditional structured company. We live in a time where anyone can start anything just about, because there's this thing called the internet, and it's a double-edged sword, because we see these people successful on YouTube and Instagram and whatever else. Well, they started somewhere. Sometimes a lot of it is luck, because they caught the moment, or they joined TikTok early enough where they were one of the 5 users, so everybody followed them when they joined. Sure, timing is everything, but it's also just building. What do we say? We say, like, we're building our chessboard. We're putting the chess pieces into the right position so that when the time is right, we can make the checkmate maneuver. And I actually don't play chess, so I don't even know if I use the analogy right, but we're building our chessboard. It's not a 3-play game. You build a strategy to get to an end goal. And so, yeah, I think that whole adage of, I think don't be short-sighted about what's possible, because we actually live in a time where almost people are overwhelmed with what's possible. And then you've got to refine and whittle it down to what you actually need to be doing right now. Did I just answer the question?
Yeah. Totally. No, you did. And I think, there might be some brain matter on people's headphones from
Thank goodness
mind
you're
blown.
used to this.
No, I know. It's good. It's good. That was a lot of business talk. I do want to shift a little bit and talk a little bit more about you as an individual.